Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault Jersey. Joe Archino back here with your Week 3 NFL picks. It's amazing how fast the season's already gone, and it's only going to go faster from here. But let's start right off with the Cardinals going on the road against the Buffalo Bills. Always a very difficult place to play, but the rankings I see right now say 94% of people are going with the Cardinals. I'm not going to deviate from that 94%, and look, I always have kind of a theme in life that whenever it looks too easy, it normally is. And I think last night's Thursday night game where the Patriots beat the Texans was kind of an example of that. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to pick the Texans. Jacoby Brissett has never played an NFL game before, just as raw comes. And the Patriots dominate that game from the start to the end of it, no doubt about it. That was one of those examples where the theme kind of stays true. I don't think, though, that happens in this one. I do think it's not going to be pretty, but Buffalo is just a mess right now. I mean, you look at the way things have kind of gone on with the coaching staff there and with the offense. There's just a lot of problems there, and I just see too much stability on the Cardinals front. I'm still not in love with this Cardinals team. I think traveling for them will be difficult. Carson Palmer will probably take them a while to get going, but they're just too well coached, I think, to lose a game to a Bills team that just doesn't have a ton of confidence right now. Then the Bengals at home against the Broncos. A lot of people going with Denver here, but I like Cincinnati. Denver has played very, very well to start this season. A lot of people are trying to make the point in the case that they're an even better team than they were last season, and it's very hard to disagree with that. I mean, Peyton Manning, we know it was his last hurrah, but this offense now definitely is much, much better than it was last season. The playmakers were always there, and they don't really, Trevor Siemian doesn't really have to do too much to really control the game, and he's played very well on top of that. But Cincinnati coming off a tough loss to Pittsburgh on the road. They started their season with a road win against the Jets. I think at home, Cincinnati's been very good these past couple seasons. Andy Dalton is very good at home. I just think it's time that Cincinnati gets the win at home and Denver picks up their first loss of the season. Then Miami at home against Cleveland. And pretty soon, I think LeBron James is going to have to suit up and play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns because they have just had so many injuries when it comes to that. And look, we all understand the circumstances both these teams are kind of around. I don't think either team right now, they're both at the bottom pack of the NFL, especially in terms of just the key positional players. But of course, Miami's the home team here. It's the bottom of the barrel. You go with the Dolphins here at home. Now, this next game is very interesting. To me, it's the most interesting game, I think, of this week, and that's Green Bay at home against Detroit. All this week, everyone's been writing articles about Aaron Rodgers. Something doesn't seem to be clicking there. What's going on with the Packers? What's going on with Aaron Rodgers? And we certainly did see a massive, weird, dull period last season where Rodgers just didn't seem like himself for the Packers to end their season. Now, Detroit split with Green Bay last season. Detroit beat them at Lambeau last year. So Detroit can go in there and win this game. I thought Detroit week 1 beating the Colts on the road showed huge growth, but then they lose the game after the Titans come from behind and win that one. So Detroit's certainly a team that I think we're still on the fence about. But Green Bay, losing that game to the Vikings, Sam Bradford, it might have been the best NFL game he ever played. There's a lot of looming questions about Green Bay as well. But I don't think those questions to me are, I think this will be a big game where they will be answered. I'm going with Green Bay here, but Detroit can go in there and win, and I think that they will have a good chance to bounce back. So it's going to be a very close game. Oakland on the road against Tennessee. Like I just referenced, Marcus Mariota brings the Titans from behind, and they win last week against Detroit. And it's one of those things I love about Mariota is he had a very, very tough week 1 against the Vikings. The Vikings defense really gave him a nightmare, but he bounced back, comes from behind, beats the Lions in week 2, and that shows tremendous growth. Now, Oakland, to me, disappointing. I had them winning against Atlanta last week. It didn't happen, but they pulled off a huge win on the road week 1 against the Saints. This is a game that I think is very split. It seems like most people are going with the Raiders. I like the growth that Marcus Mariota showed in week 2. But the Raiders have a really, really high degree of toughness to them. I still don't think that the coaching staff on Tennessee is great, and I think Oakland has great coaching with Jack Del Rio. I'm going to go with Oakland to win this one in a tough road game. Then Carolina at home against Minnesota. And Minnesota, despite everything that's happened to them with Adrian Peterson, with Teddy Bridgewater, they're 2-0. And Sam Bradford, he played a heck of a football game on Sunday night against Green Bay. I still will make the argument it's the best game he ever played as a starter in the NFL, and that's without barely even having any time to digest the Vikings playbook or anything. But it didn't matter. He just went out there and executed and played very well. But Carolina, I think we look at them as a much more complete team at home. Carolina, most of the action coming in on them. I'm not going to go away from that as well. I'm going with Carolina. The New York Giants will try to go in 3-0 against the Redskins at home this Sunday, and it's one of those cases where last year, all we talked about was Norman against Beckham. What will the matchup look like between them? I'm sure it will be a war of words, a war every time the two of them are near each other, but I do think it will be overshadowed by the Giants, which just look like a much more organized football team right now. Washington has a lot of problems right now. Kirk Cousins had a very rough start to the season. Jay Gruden has expressed vocally that about his displeasure about the way his quarterback has played. It seems like there's not a lack of unity in the Redskins locker room. They don't have a great running game. I think it's very easy to pick the Giants here, but this is a divisional game. These two always make this game difficult. The Giants have won their first 2 games, but really when you look at it, it really did come down to the final sequence of plays, and they look much more organized finishing games. And I do think this one will be a similar story. It'll come down to the end, and the Giants will continue to show their better execution in the end of the game and will win. Then Jacksonville at home against Baltimore. Baltimore, to me, they're 2-0, but that's not a very convincing 2-0. Week 1, really tough win against Buffalo. Week 2, they really get behind against Baltimore, but they find a way to come from behind and win. I'm going with the Jaguars here at home. Jacksonville is 0-2. They got really trounced by the Chargers last week on the road. In week 1, I really thought they had a chance to win at home against Green Bay, but they didn't. But I'm going to go with Jacksonville to get their first win of the season here. To me, I just haven't been too convinced from Baltimore. I don't think their offense is going to be as good on the road, and it's just time Jacksonville gets a win. They're a young team. They really have a lot of good talent around them. And this Baltimore team, I still think, hasn't given us that signature performance, and I'm going with Jacksonville. Then the Rams on the road against Tampa Bay. The Rams pulling out a pretty surprising one, beating the Seahawks last weekend. It goes back to my motto, whenever it looks too easy, it always is. And after their Monday night disaster against the 49ers, who in the world would have thought that they would have beaten the Seahawks? But they did. But I think here they will lose again to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay goes back home. Winston had a great week 1, and I think going back home here against a Rams team, which I still don't think is very good, and I still don't think any of us think is very good. I think he's going to have a big day. Then we go to the next game, San Francisco on the road against Seattle. Interesting game here. Seattle, certainly a team where they seem like they've lost a little bit of their identity. I don't think that you look at the protection Russell Wilson is getting. It doesn't look very good. But San Francisco as well is a team where Chip Kelly has shown some good things so far. His team certainly hasn't struggled scoring the ball, but I think Seattle at home, this is kind of a game where they really need it. They really need to show their identity and who they are again. And I just don't think the talent on San Francisco warrants them walking in there and getting a win. So I'm going to go with the safe pick and go with Seattle. Next game on the list, Indianapolis at home against San Diego. San Diego bouncing back in week 2 with a win over the Jags at home. But man, you talk about another team that's just been decimated by injuries so far. Danny Woodhead out for the season. And then, of course, Keenan Allen in week 1 out for the season. 2 of Phillip Rivers' favorite weapons, and that's certainly going to hurt him. I have the Colts picking up their first win of the season at home. But the Colts are an interesting team too, where I just can't buy into it right now. They never put themselves in position to win early. It seems like they always make it more difficult. Andrew Luck, even with how good he is, puts himself in some bad situations early and can't get going. But the Colts can't do that here, and I think it won't be pretty like it hasn't been, but they will get the win. Then the Jets going on the road against the Chiefs, and I'm going with the Jets on the road here. This is a tough game. I think it's easier to go with Kansas City because they're home, but I just haven't liked what I've seen from Kansas City so far this season. They seems like they've really gotten off to really slow starts in both their games so far this season, and the Jets are a team where in week 1, they dropped that disappointing one to the Bengals. In week 2, they really put up a lot of good points on the road on Buffalo. I think that continues here. It's so difficult to travel on the road multiple times in the NFL. But the Jets' offense, to me, really looks like it's clicking pretty well right now. And I'm just not in love with that Chiefs offense. I'm going with the Jets on the road. Next game on the list, a little bit of a geographic rivalry. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road against the Eagles. And look, both these teams have gotten off to tremendous starts to the season. Pittsburgh has looked very good. And then Philadelphia, Carson Wentz, what can you say about the kid, how good he has been? He has been phenomenal. All the trust, you look at the poise, you look at the command that he showed. He's been tremendous. But this is not the Browns, and this is not the Bears. This is a little bit of a different situation here. He does get the Steelers at home, which is a big help, but I think Carson Wentz, this is the first tough game he's facing in his NFL career, and Pittsburgh will get the win on the road. But this is going to be a very interesting game to watch for Wentz because we've seen how good he's looked already, how he looks and how calm and composed he looks against the Steelers. That could really show you how good this kid could be, but I think we already know how good he is going to be. But going with Pittsburgh there, Chicago on the road against Dallas. Chicago is just a complete mess right now. I mean, really, they're a team that just needs an overhaul. They really do. At the quarterback position, of course, Jay Cutler's going to miss some time, which for the Bears doesn't seem like it will affect them that much because his play just hasn't been good enough. The Cowboys, Dak Prescott has really done a good job at holding down the ship there. Week 1, they could have won against the Giants. Week 2, they found a way to win against the Redskins. And I think in Week 3, they put together a much more complete performance where the win isn't as hard to get. Then in the Monday night game, New Orleans at home against Atlanta. And New Orleans is still searching for the first win of their season. And I think we looked at New Orleans and we've kind of seen the regression take place there over the past 2-3 seasons. They come home now. They've had such a close chance of winning their first 2 games, but they haven't been able to do so. Atlanta in week 1, they disappoint. In week 2, they get a big road win. Here, this is a very close game, a very tough divisional game, but I think the safest one here is, of course, the home team and the Saints. I'm going to go with them, but I don't think it's easy, and I think you've really seen youth take over the NFC South. I mean, it seemed like it was always such a battle between Atlanta and New Orleans, the aging guys and Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, but the young quarterbacks, I think, are going to be the ones taking over the division. I mean, Carolina obviously controlled that division last season, and I think this season you see Tampa Bay continue to take the next step forward, and we continue to see the regression from New Orleans and Atlanta, but it will be a close game. I have New Orleans winning at home, and that is going to do it for your Week 3 NFL picks. This is the Sports Vault with Jersey, Joe Archino. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino, and I'll catch everybody in the next episode.